The house seemed quieter now, but not peaceful. The clock ticked steadily in the background, each second stretching the silence between Emma and Michael into something almost unbearable. Emma leaned against the counter in the kitchen, her fingers gripping the edge as if it could anchor her amidst the storm of feelings swirling inside her. Michael had not moved from the dining room. He watched her with that same intensity, eyes steady, unwavering. It was as if he were waiting for her to say something. Though what that something should be, she had no idea. She was caught in a liminal space, a fragile balance between what she had always known and what she was beginning to feel. "Emma," he said softly, stepping closer, but not too close, careful with his presence, as if aware of boundaries yet deliberately testing them. "You don't have to answer me now. I had to say what I feel." Her breath caught, and she glanced toward him, caught off guard by the depth in his voice. There was honesty there, a vulnerability that was rarely allowed to show him. The men she knew, including Daniel. She wanted to step back, to tell him firmly that this conversation had to end. But her legs felt weak, her mind betraying her, refusing to act with the decisiveness she had always prided herself on. Michael," she began, her voice quivering slightly. This is complicated. You know it's complicated." He nodded, expression thoughtful. "I know, I do. That's why I've been quiet all these years. Because I respect him. Because I respect what we have: friendship, family. But I also respect you enough to be honest. I can't sit there pretending nothing exists between us when I feel it so deeply." Her eyes fell to the floor, tracing the pattern of the tiles as if focusing on them could give her the clarity she desperately needed. She thought of Daniel, his smile in the mornings, the way he would sometimes forget to notice the small things, the slow distance that had been growing between them over the past months. She loved him, yes, but Michael's words had awakened a part of her that she had suppressed for too long. The longing to be truly seen, truly acknowledged. She remembered the afternoons when she would prepare lunch for Daniel, and he would come home late, exhausted, barely noticing the effort she put into making the house feel like a home. She remembered the small moments of isolation, quiet dinners, long stretches of silence, the feeling of speaking but not really being heard. Michael had noticed those moments. Michael had always noticed. And now, sitting across from him in the glow of the candlelight, she felt that longing swell, undeniable, almost tangible in the air between them. I don't know what to say," she whispered, voice barely audible. Michael reached out, his hand hovering near hers, the slightest space separating them. A physical manifestation of the tension and restraint that had defined their relationship for years. "You don't have to say anything. Not yet. Just let yourself feel it. You've been holding it in too long, haven't you?" Emma's hands trembled. She looked down at the counter, trying to steady herself. But the warmth of his gaze made it impossible. She had spent months, maybe years, learning to suppress this yearning, convincing herself that it was wrong, impossible, dangerous. And yet here it was, barely contained, undeniable, pressing against her chest like a living thing demanding recognition. She started again, but words failed her. Her thoughts were tangled, a chaotic mix of loyalty, desire, fear, and longing. Michael's presence was overwhelming in its quiet intensity, his honesty like a light she had never allowed herself to see. He stepped a little closer, careful to respect her space, his voice lowering to a soft murmur. "Emma, I don't want to pressure you. I only want you to understand that what I feel, it's real, it's not fleeting. And I've waited years to say it because I knew saying it could change everything. But here it is, I had to." She swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. The weight of his words settled heavily over her, mingling with the suppressed emotions she had carried silently. She thought of Daniel again, the life they had built together, the moments that were theirs yet felt distant. And then she thought of Michael, the years of understanding, attention, subtle care, and the truth that he could see her in ways Daniel could not. Her chest tightened as conflicting emotions battled within her. Part of her wanted to reach out, to let herself feel the warmth of his presence, the intimacy of honesty shared in the quiet of her home. Another part of her, the part that had been taught to value loyalty above all else, screamed that this was dangerous, that boundaries existed for a reason. Michael's eyes softened as he noticed her struggle, and he spoke again, quieter this time, almost reverently. "You've been carrying so much, Emma. So much that no one has noticed. And I've watched quietly from the sidelines, wishing I could help without crossing the line. But tonight, I couldn't stay silent anymore." Her hands trembled as she leaned against the counter, feeling the cool surface beneath her palms, grounding her amidst the storm of emotions. The silence stretched, charged with unspoken words, electric in its intensity. Each heartbeat seemed amplified, a reminder of the choice looming before her, whether to stay within the familiar confines of her life, or to acknowledge the stirring truth that had lain dormant for so long. "You," she began again, her voice catching in her throat. "You shouldn't have to say that." Michael shook his head slightly, a gentle, almost imperceptible movement. "No, Emma, you deserve to hear it. You deserve someone to notice, to acknowledge everything you are and everything you feel. And I see you. I always have." The weight of his confession pressed on her chest, leaving her breathless, her mind a tangled maze of conflicting thoughts. Memories of quiet evenings alone, the gentle disappointment she had learned to mask with a smile, the subtle absence of attention she had craved. All of it converged into this single moment of clarity. Michael's honesty illuminated what she had ignored for too long. She wanted to retreat, to hide behind the safe walls she had built. But a deeper, more dangerous impulse urged her to stay, to acknowledge the feelings that had been quietly consuming her heart, the warmth of his gaze, the sincerity in his voice, the palpable tension. It all demanded recognition. Michael extended his hand, a silent offer of connection, of understanding, of an unspoken promise. Emma's fingers hovered above his, caught between the urge to withdraw and the yearning to accept. Her chest tightened, tears threatening to spill as the enormity of the moment settled around them. She whispered again, but the words faltered. The truth was that she didn't know what to say. She had never been faced with such raw honesty, such unguarded emotion directed at her. The fear, the longing, the forbidden thrill, it all collided in her heart, leaving her frozen, trembling, and achingly aware of what she had been missing. Michael's hand remained close, patient, understanding, as if giving her the space to make a choice she wasn't ready to articulate. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'll wait. You don't have to answer now. Just know that I see you, and I care." The room seemed impossibly still, yet charged with the weight of unspoken truths. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows, the city lights of Seattle casting faint reflections across the walls. Emma's mind raced, her heart pounding with the awareness that nothing in her life would remain unchanged after tonight. She leaned against the counter, trembling, her thoughts spinning. She thought of Daniel, of the years they had spent together, of the love that had grown quiet under the weight of routine. And she thought of Michael, whose honesty had cut through the monotony, exposing the raw, vulnerable truth of her heart. In that charged silence, Emma understood that the choices before her were impossible to ignore. The warmth in Michael's gaze, the sincerity in his words, and the recognition of her unspoken longing had awakened something she could no longer deny. And as Michael waited, patient and steady, Emma felt the first stirrings of a decision she wasn't yet ready to voice, but which would shape everything that came next. The soft clink of the last dessert plate being set aside marked a sudden, almost unbearable silence. Daniel had excused himself, leaving Michael and Emma alone in the dimly lit dining room. Emma's fingers lingered on the edge of the table, tracing invisible patterns across the polished wood as she tried to fill the silence with movement. Michael, meanwhile, sat back in his chair, wine glass half empty, his gaze fixed on her in a way that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't the casual attention of a friend. It wasn't the playful teasing she was used to from him. It was quiet, deliberate, and searching. Emma felt a strange heat rise in her chest. She tried to push it aside, telling herself it was ridiculous to notice the way he was looking at her, now her husband's best friend. "I've always admired you, Emma," Michael said, his voice low, almost hesitant. She froze, fingers stilling on the table. "Not just tonight. For years." She blinked, uncertain if she had heard correctly. Her mind recoiled, a combination of disbelief and an odd, forbidden thrill stirring in her. The words weren't meant to be said between her and Michael, and yet they hung in the air, impossible to ignore. Emma's first instinct was to protest, to tell him he couldn't say things like that. But the second she opened her mouth, the words died. She felt her chest tighten, a fluttering she hadn't felt in months. The careful, practiced armor of her daily life, the routine, the politeness, the constant focus on her family, suddenly felt fragile, ready to shatter. Michael's eyes didn't waver. They held hers with an intensity that made her pulse race. "Daniel doesn't see it," he continued, softer now, almost a whisper. "But you deserve more. Someone who actually notices you. Someone who listens." Emma's hands clenched. In her lap, she swallowed hard, trying to find a way to steady her voice. "Michael, you shouldn't—" "I know," he interrupted gently, raising his hands slightly, as if to show he meant no harm. "I don't want to cause trouble, but I can't leave tonight without saying this. I can't leave without being honest about how I feel." Her mind whirled. She had always known Michael was thoughtful, attentive. That was part of why she had always liked him, in a friendly way. But now, the warmth of his words, the sincerity in his gaze, it stirred something she had long buried. Something quiet and aching. Emma thought of Daniel. She loved him, yes, in the way she always had, but lately their marriage had been drifting into silence. Long hours at work, distracted conversations, subtle emotional distance. She had tried to be patient, to fill the gaps herself, but some nights she felt invisible. And now, sitting across from Michael, she realized just how starved she had been for that kind of attention. "You're Daniel's best friend," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her efforts to sound steady. Michael nodded slowly. "I know. And that's why this is so hard. Because I respect him. But I've also seen you, Emma. Really seen you. Not the way anyone else does." The words cut through her like a sudden chill. She could feel tears threatening to rise, but she blinked them away. She didn't want him to see. Not like this. She tried to focus on her movements, on the simple act of pouring another glass of wine. Anything to distract herself from the heat in her chest. But Michael's voice followed her, quiet yet insistent. "Do you remember last spring?" he asked suddenly. "The garden party at Daniel's office. You were standing by the flower beds. and I saw you watching everyone else laugh. But your eyes, they weren't really laughing. You were alone in a crowd, and I noticed. Emma stiffened. Her heart beat faster. How could he have remembered that? How could anyone have noticed that? That's the thing, Michael continued, leaning slightly forward, his voice almost breaking. With emotion. I've noticed. Every little thing. The quiet disappointment you hide behind a smile. The moments you shrink into yourself so no one else has to see. I see it all. Emma's breath caught. It wasn't flattery, not the shallow kind people sometimes offer. It was truth. Raw and intimate. She moved toward the kitchen, thinking she needed space, but Michael followed. The house suddenly felt smaller, every shadow and candle flicker amplifying the tension between them. Michael, you can't say things like that, she whispered, almost pleading. Not to me. Not like this. He hesitated, then reached out, his hand brushing against hers as she set down the wine glass. The touch was brief but electric, and Emma's chest tightened in a way that was both terrifying and irresistible. I'm sorry, he said softly. I shouldn't have, but I had to. I couldn't leave tonight without telling you. Emma's mind was a storm. Her loyalty to Daniel tugged at her, but the warmth in Michael's eyes, the way he had always truly noticed her, it was intoxicating. Part of her wanted to lean in, to let herself feel the connection that had been simmering for years. Another part of her wanted to run, to slam the door, to restore the boundaries that had kept her safe. The room fell silent again. Emma leaned against the counter, her fingers gripping the edge for support. Michael's eyes softened, full of something she couldn't name but recognized immediately. Longing. You don't have to answer me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I needed to say it. Emma closed her eyes, her mind racing. Every memory of her marriage, every quiet moment of feeling unseen, every small longing she had buried deep inside, pressed up against Michael's words. She remembered the first time she met him, Daniel's college roommate, the one who had always been there through thick and thin. He had been charming, funny, effortlessly kind. Back then she had liked him, in a casual, harmless way. But now, sitting across from him, feeling the intensity in his gaze, the truth of his words, she realized the depth of her own feelings had been growing, quietly, almost invisibly. Emma. Michael's voice broke through her reverie. I don't want to make things complicated. I don't want to hurt anyone. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. Her chest tightened, her mind spinning. She had always been careful, always the responsible wife. But in this moment, she felt seen in a way she hadn't felt for years. Seen, acknowledged, desired, not physically, not in a way that was reckless, but emotionally, deeply, in a way that shook her very foundation. She wanted to speak, to tell him to stop, to tell him she couldn't feel this way. But the words wouldn't come. Her throat tightened, her pulse raced, and she realized with a shock that she didn't want to stop feeling this. Michael's hand lingered near hers, as if giving her a chance to retreat, to accept, to respond. Emma felt her knees weaken, her carefully constructed composure fracturing. And in that silence, with the soft flicker of candlelight and the distant hum of the Seattle night outside, Emma understood something she had been avoiding. The quiet, longing she had buried under years of routine and compromise had been seen all along. Michael had seen it. And for the first time in a long while, someone's recognition of her heart left her trembling, not with fear, but with a dangerous, beautiful hope. She pressed her lips together, leaning against the counter, staring at the empty space between them. The room seemed impossibly still, yet charged, as though holding its breath with her. And then he spoke again, softly, almost a whisper. "I know this isn't simple, but I had to tell you." Emma's hands trembled. Her mind raced. Part of her wanted to reach out, to close the distance, to feel the warmth of a truth long denied. Another part wanted to run, to restore the walls that had kept her safe for so long. She realized, with a mixture of fear and longing, that nothing would feel the same after tonight. Not their friendship, not her marriage, not even her sense of herself. And as Michael's eyes held hers, steady and unwavering, Emma felt the first stirrings of a choice she wasn't sure she was ready to make, but knew she couldn't ignore. The soft hum of the dishwasher was the only sound in the kitchen as Emma leaned over the counter, smoothing the corners of the tablecloth for the third time that day. The table was already set, the silverware aligned just right, and the wine. Glasses caught the last orange glow of the Seattle sunset streaming through the window. Hosting had always been her way of showing love. She had grown up in a small town in Oregon, where her mother taught her that a home wasn't just four walls. It was the warmth of a meal, the smell of something baking, the comfort of laughter shared around a table. Emma carried that lesson into her marriage. Every detail tonight mattered to her, even if she wasn't sure it mattered to Daniel anymore. She adjusted the candles again. It had been a while since Daniel's eyes had softened at such gestures. Lately he barely noticed. Still, she told herself, tonight will be good. Daniel walked into the kitchen, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up from a long day at the office. He looked at the table, then at her, and gave a small smile. "Looks nice. Michael will appreciate it." Michael, Daniel's longtime friend, from their college days at the University of Washington. He had been in and out of their lives for years, showing up at birthdays, helping when they moved houses, even bringing flowers for Emma once when Daniel had forgotten an anniversary. Emma had always admired his thoughtfulness, though she never said it aloud. "He should be here any minute," Daniel added, grabbing a glass of water. "Thanks for going all out." Emma nodded, hiding the flicker of disappointment that he hadn't complimented her dress. She had chosen a soft navy blue, one Daniel once said brought out her eyes. But now, he barely looked at her. The doorbell rang. Michael's voice carried easily as Daniel opened the door. "Smells amazing in here already." When Michael stepped into the house, Emma noticed how effortlessly he filled a room. He had that kind of presence, easy, relaxed, but commanding attention without trying. His dark hair was sprinkled with grey at the temples now, but instead of aging him, it made him look distinguished. "Emma," he said warmly, pulling her into a quick hug. "You've outdone yourself again, I can tell." She laughed softly, brushing off the compliment. "It's just pasta and roasted vegetables. Nothing fancy." Michael grinned. "You always say that, but everything you make tastes like it belongs in a restaurant." Daniel chuckled. "Don't let her fool you. She'll claim it's nothing, but I've watched her spend half the day in here." Emma blushed faintly, busying herself with the serving dishes. Compliments always sat strangely with her, especially from Michael. They felt too direct, too sincere, as if he saw her effort in a way Daniel no longer did. They sat at the table. Dinner flowed easily at first, with stories about work, old college memories, and the usual teasing between friends. Michael was a natural storyteller. He could take the most ordinary event, like a meeting gone wrong at the office, and make it sound like a comedy sketch. Emma laughed more than she had in weeks, her chest loosening in a way she hadn't realized. She needed Dot, but beneath the laughter, she noticed things. The way Michael's gaze lingered on her when she spoke. The way he listened, leaning in slightly, as if every word mattered. Daniel, in contrast, scrolled through his phone once or twice, checking emails even as Emma was telling a story about her garden. She forced herself not to feel hurt. This had become normal. Daniel was busy, distracted. It didn't mean he didn't care. Right? Halfway through dinner, Daniel excused himself to take a call from work. Emma watched him disappear into the hallway. Phone pressed to his ear. His voice growing faint. And then it was just her and Michael. The candles flickered between them. Michael gave her a smile. Softer now. You always make evenings like this feel special. I don't know how you do it. Emma tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, suddenly aware of the silence that filled the room. She tried to focus on her plate, but his words lingered. It's just dinner, she said, though her voice sounded thinner than she meant it to. Michael tilted his head slightly, his eyes steady on her. Not to me. Her breath caught, though she quickly looked away. She busied herself with pouring more wine, pretending not to notice the warmth spreading across her cheeks. When Daniel returned, the easy rhythm picked up again. They ate dessert chocolate, cake Michael had brought from a local bakery, and laughter filled the room once more. Yet, Emma couldn't shake the strange undercurrent. Later, Daniel pushed back his chair. I've got that early meeting tomorrow. I think I'll head up. He kissed Emma's cheek absent-mindedly and clapped Michael on the shoulder. Stay as long as you want, man. I'll see you tomorrow. And just like that, he was gone. The house grew quieter. Emma collected the plates, but Michael didn't make a move to leave. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, swirling the last of his wine. His eyes followed her as she walked to the kitchen. Something about his silence unnerved her. Normally, he was quick with jokes, always keeping the conversation light. But now, there was a weight in the air she couldn't explain. She rinsed the plates, her hands trembling slightly, though she told herself it was nothing. Behind her, Michael's voice came, lower, almost hesitant. You know, I've always wondered. Emma turned, heart skipping. He paused, as though debating whether to continue. In that moment, Emma realized this dinner wasn't over. Not in the way she expected.